Hey shy people, what is your worst experience? Going to a crowded party with one friend who really wanted to drag you along but then disappears. My outgoing mother announcing to everyone how shy I am. In my high school Spanish class, some kid screamed, "Do you ever talk?" at me in front of the entire class. Super embarrassing at the time, but hilarious to look back on. Edit. For those curious, I said nothing in response. If only I could go back in time. I was in a group therapy session as a kid, like maybe 14. I really had to go to the bathroom, but we weren't allowed to during the session. I was sorta balled up in the center of the room, not like emotional or anything, just sitting comfortably hugging my knees cause all the spots on the couch were taken. Some girl had just finished telling a story of her abuse. She was crying and there was no other sound. Was sort of that awkward but respectful silence that fills the space when you wanna be supportive but saying anything at all would somehow seem inconsiderate. It was into this yawning void that I farted. I knew it was coming. I'd been staving off the gurgling in my stomach for some time now. I'd broken into a sweat already with the sheer effort of will to delay the inevitable. It was no use. I tried to discreetly shift my weight and maybe muffle the sound. I failed. This was neither silent nor deadly. It effortlessly shattered the silence like sledgehammer versus a Christmas ornament. Another moment of silence swallowed the sound, but it was a void of disbelief. Then some kid yelled as loud as they could, "Jen farted." And the entire room collapsed into helpless laughter while I promptly turned to stone and died on the spot. I am a bit shy when first meeting people, so after getting to know me, I often hear, "When I first met you, I thought you were such a cool." When you talk and people say things like, "Oh, I didn't know you could talk," or, "This is the first time I hear you talking." As a kid, my shyness was crippling. I got locked in the toilet in school, started yelling, crying, and the teacher had to remove the lock to get me out. The whole class was standing behind him, looking at me. I was in elementary and took a bus home each day. I missed my stop and I was so terribly shy and quiet the bus driver didn't hear me. He went on to pick up high school students and didn't notice I was still on the bus. The high school students were so sweet and kind. They alerted the bus driver and he took me home. My mom was freaking out by the time I got home. Putting a year's worth of confidence into a job interview, just to be the quiet one after you get the job. The anxiety dude. Starts college to doesn't make friends till lockdown to shits. Went to a party. Guy I've never met walks up to me, shakes my hand, and says, "Hello, what's your name? Where were you born? Where will you die? What's in between?" Not letting go of my hand the whole time. I completely locked up, had no idea what to say. I wouldn't say this is my worst experience, but it's amusing to me. I was setting up a network in a small satellite office and was still working when the last other person left. It was nighttime and they didn't see me or know I was still there, so they turned out all the office lights as they left. I left them off because I enjoy working in the dark and do it often. After like an hour, another worker came back into the office to do something or another, and rather than have to say hi, I opted to hide under the desk I was at in an open office as a approximately 35-year-old man. I'm not sure why I did that, but luckily they didn't notice me and left again after about 15 minutes. While going to college, I interned for the state's largest business development corporation. In a meeting with C-suite executives, the top dog was just making friendly conversation before we got started and asked me what classes I was taking. To set the picture, I am just the peon note taker and would never expect anyone to even notice that I was there, let alone put me on the spot with a long table of successful professionals staring at me. I blacked out. Zero brain function. I mumbled a few inaudible grunts and UMMS before having no choice but to admit that I couldn't remember. Oh my dog, I wanted to die. The looks of confusion and the awkward century that it took to switch topics amongst themselves still haunts me before bed. My shy buddy hated ordering coffee at the Starbucks in the Barnes & Noble bookstore. They cannot accept your order and take your money. They had about 6 questions they have to ask first. She couldn't stand it. Her, "I'd like a medium coffee." Them, "Do you want light roast or dark roast?" "We don't have medium, we have tall." "Okay. Do you need space for cream?" "What's your name? Are you part of the bookstore club? Are you part of the Starbucks points?" I'm not sure if I'm remembering it right, but I think at least once she panicked and walked away mid-interrogation. I was at a friend's house. His parents used to scare me. The dad had a thick Asian accent, and due to my nerves, I guess I wasn't paying attention. Didn't realize the dad was full on asking how I was, and I just stood there awkwardly. I thought he was speaking to his son in Cantonese. I still think about this. I never corrected my boss when she mixed up my name on the first day. I had already introduced myself to some people by my real name. The other half of people my boss introduced me to called me another. I felt too shy to correct her in front of the group. It just led to more awkward conversations, as the two names were completely different. Mandatory speech class when I was a freshman in college. I do the thing, then go back to my dorm and throw up. Really freaked out my roommate, who I barely spoke to. 5 speeches that semester. It was a nightmare. Being told to lower your voice and shut up as a child, then as a teen being told to speak up for myself more and answer when I am asked something, then growing up never speaking unless spoken to, or in case of emergency. As a shy girl I only talked when my friends did. I also didn't go to my teacher when I accidentally smashed my thumb with a hammer for a class project. Since I was trying my best to be quiet and not disturb anyone, I realized no one noticed I smashed my thumb up. So after recovering from almost fainting at the sight of my blood oozing out, I walked up to the teacher so I wouldn't bother anyone else and asked her if she had a first aid kit. She said, "Of course, why? Did you hurt yourself?" And I just showed her my thumb, dripping with broken skin, and said, "Kinda." She was shocked I hadn't screamed or said anything for a good 10 minutes and immediately set off to get the first aid and help dress my injury. She knew I was quiet and shy, though I think it surprised her to realize to what extent. I figured I needed some help, and I absolutely had to ask, because my tiny first aid kit was only meant for paper cuts and small scrapes. Long story short, I was too shy to draw attention to my pain, and had to gather the courage and breath to ask for assistance. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to get a ton of attention. Thanks everyone. I'm glad many of you found it relatable and I was able to share something you all understand and sympathize with. I appreciate it, fellow shy folks. White heart. Graduating basic training and having to walk across the stage, stop at the mic, execute a left face turn, state my name in the mic with a short pause between first and last name as a cue for the next row of guys to walk up. I completely it up in front of everyone. Went to shake my drill sergeant's hand as a formality of the ceremony and he whispered to me, "Way too." That up in front of everyone, dipshit. Back to your seat. I hate public speaking. I went from being the anxiously shy kid to the anxiously talkative person that has no filter and people find annoying. The worse the social tension gets, the more I talk, the worse I make it, the more I talk. I had a roommate and I lived with for 2 months while I subletted a room. I used to talk to him for hours like every night after work. In my head, I justify thinking I was overthinking it, that he doesn't hate me. Why would he talk to me for so many hours? But then again, we never hung out outside the apartment. We're both busy, that's it. He's never called me back or talked to me since I moved out. Kinda hard to dismiss the, he thought you were crazy and only appeased you because he thought you would. Him in his sleep, explanation. Well anyway, it turns out I can avoid being psychotically talkative and later screaming into my pillow regretting it if I just avoid people. Okay everyone, before we begin, why don't we go around the room and tell us a little about yourselves? I decided to be brave at a college picnic for students in the pharmacy program. All the tables were occupied, so I confidently went up to a table with a bunch of people and asked if I could join them, and I immediately sat down. No one said a word to me. Not one word. I ate as fast as possible and went home and cried. Those assholes. Edit. It was a picnic to welcome back students. All the tables were full, and I had a plate full of food. My options were to pick a random group of people, or try to stand up while eating salad and whatnot, or dump my plate and just go home. In retrospect, I should have picked option number 3, but at the very minimum the people I sat with could have made an effort to be polite. My by far worst experience was living together with a roommate. I wasn't able to talk to them and I thought they hate me. Sat at the back of the class in Spanish, when the teacher from the front asks a question. Being the little nerd I was in school, my hand shot up. The teacher then looked over, pointed directly at me and said asterisk, "See, señorita, asterisk I was a very feminine, underdeveloped and late through puberty 15-year-old boy with longer than usual hair." I stopped answering any teacher's questions willingly from that point. I was having coffee with a friend one day. We had just been to the gym, so I thought I was looking pretty disheveled, but maybe not, because a guy came up to us and slid me a piece of paper with his number on it. He said he had seen me while driving by and thought I was beautiful and just had to stop and say hello. I was so caught off guard, and just naturally awkward around strangers period, that the only thing I could blurt out was, "If you think I'm cute now, you should see me when I've bathed." He walked away. My friend laughed. I was embarrassed for days. I hate video calls. I was going to drive 1.5 hours to my college to talk to a professor in person instead of just video calling to follow up on something. Had a high school buddy who was sworn to silence to most people, even teachers, yet a select few kids he'd talk to. Funniest guy I've ever met. Said he's gone full years without saying a word to his own teacher's edit. Wow, thanks for the upvotes and responses. I didn't think this would get attention. We would get on Xbox and play with him and he'd be the loudest and smack talk everyone. Really cool guy, wish I kept in touch. Someone took my order from the shelf at the online order station at Chipotle and I waited 45 minutes after the time it was supposed to be done before saying anything because I didn't wanna be rude. Not the literal worst thing to happen to me, but it is what stopped me from going to Chipotle. I'm not shy, but I'm one of those only talk when necessary types. I tell new people that I'm not shy and I am a low energy person, so I'm always this mellow. There is nothing wrong with not having the energy of a 10-yo who drank 3 Red Bulls. People do seem to take things I say more seriously than others. People are different in that. Worst experiences are probably the people that talk about you right next to you, assuming you don't have a backbone. My husband got me to go to a party with him at our friend's house. Got there, friend hugged me hello, and then said, "Wow, you smell really good," and then I swear to. Everyone got up and went. I want to smell, and I was surrounded by people sniffing me seconds after walking into a party. I wanted to die. It wasn't even perfume or anything, it was my hair oil. If I could afford therapy, this would definitely come up. Worst one was probably when someone said, "Why don't you talk?" and I just shrugged, but they didn't get the joke and actually thought I was mute. Having a group of people sing, "Happy Birthday" to you. I started high school after having been cooped up at home for 6 months recovering from spine surgery for scoliosis. I was really unsocialized when I started school that September, and had to force myself to do things that involved talking to people I didn't know. I'd set little daily goals for myself until I got used to it again. It was painful. I imagine much of the world will feel this way when isolation ends, though. One of the popular girls liked me. I was too shy to do anything about it. Whenever I have to talk up front at school, but I actually speak loud enough, I just don't like looking at the people. I'm a really shy person, not so much online, and definitely. Make sure to like and subscribe while watching this awesome animal.